Good evening, everybody, and a huge welcome to day 4 of our Virtual Careers Week, hosted by us, School Notices, from a rather dimly lit room, I'm afraid, and our partners, Towergate. We're delighted to be live to lower and upper sixth form pupils from schools like Bradfield, Marlborough College, Downhouse, Cheltenham Ladies College, Dean Close, Canford, St Mary's, Calm, Branston, and Westonbirt, not to mention a few parents who are interested in what we're about to hear. So every night this week, we've had 2 unique speakers from a diverse array of businesses trying to provide you with an insight into what they do, how they do it, why they got involved, some of the pitfalls to avoid, and why they might recommend that their business is for you. Tonight is no different, and we're delighted to welcome Jaime Laing, not to show off his fine paso doble, but to lift the lid on his entrepreneurial journey with the UK's fastest growing sweet brand, Candy Kittens. And we have Dr Tatiana Hyde to describe how she has navigated the medical world and the various levels of qualification needed to succeed in that highly competitive environment. Each person will speak for about 15 minutes, keeping it relevant, interesting, and hopefully engaging, and hopefully dispel some of the mysteries around career choices that everyone's starting to face. We encourage everybody to please use the Q&A facility at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions, and we'll put these to Jaime and Tatiana at the end of the webinar. But before that, I mentioned we're working with Towergate on this webinar series. Towergate Insurance are a leader in providing insurance coverage for schools and for individuals, and have been working really closely with independent school sector and selected charities for many years. So here, just to explain a little bit more of that, is a quick word of welcome from Jo Taylor of Towergate.
Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Jo from the education team at Towergate, and we're thrilled to be supporting this week-long event in collaboration with School Notices. We're passionate about education. It's a sector that we've worked in for many years, and we're always looking for opportunities and ways in which we can give something back to the sectors in which we work. What better way to do that, especially given what we've all been through in the last 18 months to 2 years, than to host an event like this and help our young people in making what can be some pretty difficult decisions. We also work with organisations that are committed to supporting and improving the mental health and well-being of young people and staff in schools, and we're particularly proud to be the supporter of an organisation called the Mindfulness in Schools Project, who are a not-for-profit organisation committed to having a positive impact on the mental health and well-being of young people in schools. Anyway, enough from me. I'm sure you're all keen to listen to the speakers that we've got lined up for you. So enjoy, and I hope you learn lots. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. We love working with you, and we really appreciate of the assistance that Towergate's put into running this event. So look, now quickly on to our first speaker, who really needs no introduction, has been through a lot of interesting career paths, I suspect, but one that's probably not as well known as the others is the sweet industry. And I'm hoping that Jaime's now going to take you through the ins and outs of that, why you got involved, etc. And so, Jaime, I'm going to hand over to you now. So the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Gordon. Hello, everyone. I was hoping for a response, but obviously you're not going to respond because we're doing this on a Zoom type thing. Yeah, that's very kind intro. It's interesting with these talks because I used to have these talks at school when they were in person, and I used to sit in there and people used to talk to me about different careers and different things that I could take, whether it was marketing or it was entrepreneurship or it was architecture or whatever it was. And I used to think, I don't really know if I relate to any of these industries. So in some cases, it made me a little bit more confused. So with that in mind, I thought what I would do is tell you 3 stories about myself, which are either going to be interesting or not interesting. But hopefully it will give you an insight to a bit more about who I am, what's happened to me, where I've come from, and perhaps it could be interesting to you guys. And each one of them sort of has a title to it. So hopefully you'll like it. Before I start, I should probably intro myself. My name is Jaime Laing. If you have watched a television show called Made in Chelsea, I apologize. I'm not that much of an idiot. I went to a boarding school from the age of 8 years old. I went to a school called Summerfields. And then I went to a school called Radley College. Some of you may know Radley. I love sport more than anything, played sport my entire life. That's all I ever wanted to do was play sport. I played a lot of rugby. I then went on to Leeds University, where I studied theatre and performance. And then after Leeds University, I went on to a reality show called Made in Chelsea, which, as I mentioned before, you may have seen. At the same time, launching a sweet business, which is a confectionery business, which we are completely vegan now. And we're the fastest growing confectionery business within the UK, which is kind of exciting, I think. And then most recently, I did a show called Strictly Come Dancing, where I found that the cha-cha was very hard to do. But I want to tell you 3 stories about my life. So the first story is, which I think for a lot of you who are listening now will help out, because when we're younger, we kind of, things happen to us, or in life things happen to us, and they don't always go our way. And the first story is why there is a reason to everything, because I honestly believe there's a reason to everything. Now, I was born on the 3rd November, and my mum's wedding anniversary was on the 3rd November, and I was 2 weeks early. And it was the first night she was allowed out of hospital. So she's the first night she's allowed out of hospital with my dad to go for dinner. And on that evening, I decided to come out of her tummy. And also I was a cesarean as well, because I was the wrong way around in the stomach. So I was a nightmare ever since the beginning. And I came out and my mum was lying in bed and I was apparently lying in the cot or whatever you do next to her. And my mum looked at me and she thought, okay, I'll read a horoscope. So she read the horoscope of me. She opened it up. And the horoscope said, beware the Scorpio child born at dawn. And that was me from the beginning. And I was a complete nightmare. I was a complete nightmare. I was always running around breaking things. I was always stealing things. I was always arguing, fighting. What you would probably describe now as a child who has ADHD. And the only thing that used to keep me sane was playing sport. I played a huge amount of sport. So at school, I was always running. I ran in all the sprinting and cross-country games, and I always won them. I was captain of all the sports. But my one sport that I loved more than anything was rugby. Loved it more than anything. And as I went to Radley and started playing more sort of competitive rugby, and as it got older, I had a decision in my mind that I said, right, what I want to do is I want to become a rugby player. That's what I want to do with my life. I want to become a professional rugby player. I want to play it for the rest of my life. And I was on tour in Italy, and the ball was kicked towards me, and I remember being underneath, and I caught the ball. I used to play fullback, which is the player who plays at the back, because that's very quick. And I ran around the players, and I ran past this one guy, and he left his leg out, and I tripped over his leg, and he landed on top of my leg, and my whole leg jackknifed and dislocated, and my ACL ligament was snapped and the cartilage went. I didn't know this at the time. But I was lying on the ground on the sports field. I was holding my knee and I was screaming. And I remember the physio came running on and I said, oh, my knee, my knee, my knee. They said, don't worry, it's going to be okay. And I got taken off the pitch and we came home from Italy and I went straight to hospital and straight to go and get an MRI scan on my knee to see what actually happened with it. And had the MRI scan and the doctor came back in and he put the scan on the wall behind me and he said, yeah, I'm afraid it's your ACL ligament and your cartilage. You won't be playing rugby again. And I was 17 years old. My whole dreams of becoming a rugby player in 5 seconds were completely smashed. And for me, that was a complete disaster. If you play an instrument or you sing, you want to be a musician. If you paint, you want to be an artist. For me, all I want to do is play rugby. And my blueprint throughout my entire life going up to there was playing rugby. That's what I wanted to do. And so I then had to rethink what I wanted to do. And for me, what I realize now at this age is that we all have a blueprint in life, whatever that may be. We may want to get married at a certain age, or we may want to set up a sweet company or go and get a job in medicine, whatever it may be. We all have a blueprint that we want, but your blueprint doesn't always add up to what you want it to be. And when one door shuts, another door opens. And for me, the biggest pain for me at that age was my knee going, but it was a complete blessing in disguise. Because what it meant was I didn't become a professional rugby player, even though I wanted to, but I had to then go to university. And university is where I then got the offer to go on Made in Chelsea. And there's also where I learned how to, where I had the idea for Candy Kittens. So if I had followed down the road of wanting to be a rugby player, I would have always tried to play rugby. I would have always been too small. I would have always got injured and I probably would never have made it. So the worst thing that happened to me in my life was actually the biggest blessing in disguise. And so for all of you, I would suggest is that when something bad happens to you, or something doesn't go your way, or you don't get into the university you want, or you perhaps don't get the grades you want, try and not be too hard on yourself, because as I said, when one door shuts, another door opens, and there is a reason for everything. And I truly believe that. Now, the second story I want to tell you was challenge the people that say no. Really challenge the people that say no. I had just had my knee injury, and my idea and dreams of being a professional rugby player had completely been smashed. So I thought, okay, what do I have to do now? And I thought, okay, fine. Well, I should apply to go to university, which a lot of you are probably thinking about doing now. And there was only one university I wanted to go to, and it was Leeds University. I decided I didn't want to go anywhere else. I didn't want to go to any of these places. I didn't want to go anywhere. I just wanted to go to Leeds because a few of my friends were going to Leeds. And the same, which probably a lot of you have, is that you probably have a lot of friends who are deciding on university choices to go to and places to go, and you have your favorites and you really want to go to them. So for me, it was all about going to Leeds. And because of my knee injury, I decided to take a year out. And for me, that was a kind of big year of realization. And for all of you, I think, especially when I was young, I always thought life would catch me up. Life would always pass me if I wasn't doing things. But actually, I would truly encourage you, if you can, and if you have the ability to do so, and if you want to, I suppose, take a year out and really assess what you kind of want to do, and go and see the world and meet different people and do different things. And I traveled to South America on my year out. And I just completed my retakes, because I had to do retakes because I had to get my new grades to get to Leeds University, because my offer at Leeds University was AAB. And my grades that I got for A level were BBB. So I needed 2 A's and a B, but I got 3 B's. So I took my retakes and I went off to South America to travel the world and have this amazing time and just experience all different things. And it was an incredible experience. We had no mobile phones or anything at the time, so we were completely escaped from anything. And I remember thinking when I was traveling, the only thing I have to worry about is dying. I had nothing else to worry about, which is kind of a weird thought. Anyway, when I was out there, I realized, I definitely want to go to Leeds University. That's what I want to do. I want to go to Leeds University. I want to study theatre and performance, and nothing was going to stop me doing that. So I came back from traveling South America, and I got my retake marks back, and they stayed exactly the same, 3 B's. And I needed AAB to get to Leeds University. So my offer was rejected because I didn't get the grades. And I thought, well, I want to go to Leeds. That's what I want to do more than anything. So the day I got back, and the day after I got back, I decided, without telling anyone, I would get on a train and I would go to Leeds University and I'd knock on the drama department door. So that's exactly what I did. I got on the train and I traveled all the way up to Leeds University. I'd never been there before. I didn't know who I was going to meet. I didn't know who I was going to speak to. Had no clue whatsoever. Didn't tell my parents, didn't tell anyone. And I went and knocked on the drama department door and someone opened. I said, "Hi there, I'm here to speak about my UCAS application." And they said, "Okay, fine." So I went and had a meeting with this guy at Leeds University, and he said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "I didn't get the grades to get in." And he said, "Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that." And I said, "Yeah, but I really want to come to this university." And he said, well, we're completely full. We don't have any spaces. And why should I allow you to come? And I said, because I want to come here more than anything. And I promise you, I'll be the best student that you've ever had. And he smiled and he sort of said to me, "Okay, I admire your confidence and I admire your intuition. And we'll get back to you." And I got on the train and I went back down to London and I didn't tell anyone. And the next day I woke up and checked my UCAS application and it was an unconditional offer to Leeds University. And the only reason I went to Leeds University is because I challenged the fact that they had told me that I couldn't get in there. And so for all of you now, if you are applying for internships or jobs or applying for universities, or in the future you're applying for anything at all, and someone says, "Sorry, no, your application isn't good enough," or "No, we're going with somebody else," never take no for an answer. Always fight against it and always put yourself ahead of every single person. At Candy Kittens, we have numerous people applying for jobs there all the time. And it's the people who really try and push to the front, really do something different, really try and engage with this person who's employing you. They're the ones we look at. And it's the people who go the extra mile, show the effort, show the intuition that they really want to get something. Those are the people that we really admire. So I'd encourage all of you to never take no for an answer and really push the boundaries with whatever it is you want to do. And my third story is why naivety is your biggest weapon. Now, this is an odd one, but I truly believe naivety is one of your biggest weapons. Now, I was at Leeds University. I was studying theatre performance. And I said to everyone before, there were 80 people in my year, and 2 of us were guys. And I was one of those guys. And one guy left the university because he didn't want to do it anyway. So I was the only guy in my entire year. And it meant that for the very first term of the first year at Leeds University, I had to do something called contemporary dance. And because I was the only guy, we had to do a play called Summertime. And I was a bulb in the flower, like this, and everyone else were the petals above it. And all of my friends were in the front row watching it, and all of the petals bloomed at summertime, and I had to come out and pretend to be the bulb, and I said, summertime. And it was this bizarre experience. And I was at Leeds University doing these things like theatre performance and really not knowing what I wanted to do with life, which a lot of you will be experiencing. And I think what happens is that we go to university thinking, okay, I'm going to study this and this and this. And sometimes what you start to study doesn't really add up to what you want to do. And that's okay. That's fine. It means your blueprint doesn't add up, and that's all right. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I was at Leeds University, and my girlfriend at the time took me for a trip to New York for my birthday. And I went to New York, and I came across this amazing place called Dylan's Candy Bar, which is Ralph Lauren's daughter's sweet shop. And there's all over America, there's 6 different stores. And it's the Hamleys of the sweet world. It is the Harrods of the sweet world. It is an incredible store. Think Willy Wonka style thing. And I walked around the store, and it was incredible. It was amazing. It was engaging. People were spending all this money on pick and mix and sweets, and it was everything that I loved. And ever since a kid, I had a fascination with sweets because I was too hyper, so my parents didn't allow me to have sweets. And I was also scared of the dark. So I used to share a room with my brother because I was afraid of the dark. And the only way I could fall asleep is if my brother told me a story of Jamie and Sweet World. So I had this fascination of this world made of sweets. And so I was in New York, and I came back from New York having this amazing experience in this place. And I had just made a decision in my head that I was going to create the equivalent within the UK. That's what I was going to do. And I was at Leeds University, and I was struggling with everything that was going on. And a friend of mine, who I still know to this day, her name is Hannah, she said to me one day when we were sitting there, said, Jamie, what are you going to do in your life? And I said, I'm going to set up a sweet shop, and it's going to be called Candy Kittens. And she said, why are you going to call it Candy Kittens? And I said, well, candy is a universal term for sweets, and kittens are the beautiful people who are going to run it. I had this idea that it was going to be an Abercrombie and Fitch style sweet shop. And it was just off the top of my head. And so I left university with this idea of this sweet shop that I wanted to create, but with no idea how to make sweets or no idea to do anything, had no clue what to do. And that was the biggest advantage I had, the fact that I had no idea what to do. And that's an interesting thing to say, because what happens in life when you're setting up a brand or you're setting up a business, you don't particularly want to follow logic. Now, if you're doing exams like a maths exam or a science exam or learning to drive, you want to follow logic because it gets you back in the same place as everybody else, a safe place. But if you're setting up a business, setting up a sweet business, setting up a computer business, setting up a fashion business, whatever it may be, you don't want to follow logic because it gets you back in the same place as everybody else. And our naivety in Candy Kittens did that. We decided to make sweets that were vegan because we thought a vegan sweet was a fun idea. Now every sweet is trying to be vegan. We did it because we were incredibly naive to the market. We wanted to make the packaging in the sweets fun, young and sexy and hip because we thought sweet packets were focused towards kids and they were boring and they weren't fun anymore. And now every sweet packet wants to do the same. We wanted to make our sweets more expensive so we could make them with real fruit juices and we could make them more elegant and look better. And so we created a category which is now called gourmet gummy candy, which was a complete category we were put in because we were naive to what we were doing. We didn't know what we were doing. And I would always say that a lot of people would always tell you how to run things or what to do or how you should do things. And I would always say that you should take advice, but you should always follow your gut and follow your naivety. And that's what we did with Candy Kittens. And that also led me to doing all the things that I have done, which is Made in Chelsea and all the different things. Those are 3 stories of myself that I wanted to share with you. And hopefully someone or somewhere can take a little bit of knowledge from it, or a little bit of something, or a little bit of help from it, whatever that may be. And I now am going to pass over or back to the wonderful Dr. Tatiana Hyde, who I think is on next.
Thank you, Jamie. The more aware out there will notice I'm not Dr. Tatiana Hyde, but thanks, Jamie. That was brilliant, really insightful, and a real message. Never take no as an answer. Push against the closed doors, and make sweets. I mean, it sounds genius. Anyway, look, thanks so much. That's great. And now we will hand over to Dr. Tatiana Hyde, who took medicine at Leeds University, became a paediatrician, and now works with the NHS. And she's going to tell you all about that, all about the journey and what she does and how she did it. So Tatiana, over to you.
Thank you, Gordon. And thank you, Jamie. What an act to follow. I'm afraid I've got PowerPoint slides because I'm not so confident to just sit and talk in front of you all for 10, 15 minutes. So I'm just going to talk you through my pathway into a career for medicine and what led me to choose that pathway. So it all starts off with this little cheeky tomboy girl who's at the front of this picture. I was a middle child. I was a bit like Jamie, actually, middle child, cheeky, nightmare to both my siblings and my parents. And a tomboy, and at this stage in life, all I wanted to do was be a boy and become a soldier. But I'm going to tell you how she became a paediatrician. So I was born in London, went to school at Garden House in London, and then we moved out to Gloucestershire when I was 8 years old. And I went to this tiny prep school called Croft Hall School, which had 56 people in the whole school. That's me in the top row in my final year, where there were 6 of us in my final year at school. And in the bottom row, in the red smock, is Jamie's older brother, Alexander, who I used to put on his smock every morning. So their older sister, Tash, was one of my best friends growing up. I had a passion for young children and was always involved with young children from a very early age. I then went on to Down House, where my first love definitely became lacrosse. My whole life at Down was revolved around lacrosse, and took me to Australia, America. It's how I met my husband, because I played lacrosse with his sister. And yeah, that was my love at Down House. But I continued to adore young children, and this was even confirmed further when I became a godmother at 13 to this gorgeous little girl, Georgia, who is now an adult herself, scarily enough. But then these 2 men came into my life. So you're probably all far too young to have a clue who either of these characters are. But George Clooney was Dr. Doug Ross. He was a consultant paediatrician in the TV series ER, which I was mad about. And Robin Williams, the late Robin Williams, was Patch Adams in a film, which and they both turned me to paediatrics. And that's where my love and thought for paediatrics for my career began. So I chose to do my 3 separate sciences at GCSE, and then went on to do biology and chemistry A-level, because you have to do chemistry, and there was no way I was going to do physics, so I did geography and general studies as my other 2 A-levels. And then once I decided I wanted to do medicine, after I'd done my GCSEs, I had to think about what work experience I was going to do. So these were my 2 kids when they were a lot younger, dressing up in daddy's shirt and tie. And so what I think of as work experience is them dressing up in their father's clothes. So for my work experience, I started off with, for Gold Duke of Edinburgh Award, I went and worked for Riding for the Disabled charity for children with disabilities, which was an amazing experience. and really confirmed that working with children was what I wanted to do in the future. I also worked in a local residential care home, care of the elderly home in our local village. And then I was really, really lucky when one of my friends in my house at Down House, her father was a consultant paediatrician at Great Ormond Street Hospital. And so I got to go to the country's leading centre for treating sick children with the widest range of specialists under one roof. And they even have their own radio station. They're just the most amazing place if you want to find out whether paediatrics is right or medicine is right and you have a passion. Then that was just an incredible opportunity to go and do my work experience there. I decided while at school that I definitely, if I was going to go in for a career of medicine, I wanted a gap year. And so I decided to use my gap year for half of it to have some fun and half of it to also convince the university that I should have a gap year because I was going to gain valuable experience during my gap year for work experience towards my medical degree. So I spent 10 weeks in Canada becoming a ski instructor, and that has really given me the foundations for a long career of mentoring junior doctors and medical students and teaching and learning the real basics of teaching because we had to qualify and get teaching qualifications to become instructors. That has been a really valuable experience for me. And then I had a very, very harrowing month in a Romanian orphanage. And this completely changed me for life, my experience in Romania. I actually had to come home a week early from my trip out there because I found it so harrowing, and it felt like each time we got the children out to play and interact with them, it was like giving a dog a bone and then you were taking it away. And I couldn't really work out how we were going to have a sustained result from this and what we were achieving by just daily interaction that was then going to be taken away. I came home trying to convince my mum to adopt all the children in the orphanage. Luckily now there's some amazing charities such as Hope and Homes for Children, which are trying to get these really vulnerable children out of orphanages and into foster homes and being adopted, which is incredible. And so I have huge support for charities such as these. After my gap year, I went on to Leeds University, where I studied medicine. I chose Leeds because I knew that I wanted to go to a university rather than a medical school in London. I wanted to have friends outside of medicine. And it was a traditional course, which meant you did 3 years of studying in lecture theatres and then you went out onto the wards and did 2 years of ward work. And when I went to medical school, it was very much a time where things were changing, and the new courses were only just starting. And so I was keen to do something that had been long-standing. I also chose to do an intercalated degree, which meant that instead of 5 years at university, I was there for 6 years. And I came away with a BSc as well as MBChB for medicine. And that just meant I was more competitive to go straight into the workplace in London, where a lot of the medical schools offer a BSc as part of their programme anyway. Sorry, pressing the wrong button. I then came down to London and got married to my husband, who had been patiently waiting for the 6 years that I was at university and my whole gap year. And so came back to London, got married and started my career in medicine in London. And this is my first day on the ward. So I went to the Royal Surrey County Hospital, where most of the doctors there had all been from London medical schools. And so it was very difficult to get a job there because you usually have your first year as a doctor in the town where you qualified. And it was just the most fantastic experience, the camaraderie of all these junior doctors starting like rabbits in headlights, absolutely terrified. And they will be also friends that you remember for life. We were at a stage as well where we do horrendous shifts, we do horrendous things. There was no European Working Time Directive, but we got hospital accommodation, and yeah, it was really, really incredible. And I loved my first years at Royal Surrey. I then went on to specialise. So everyone starts off doing general medicine. You have to do adult medicine, even if you want to go into paediatrics. And then got into paediatrics, which is what I wanted to do eventually. Paediatrics has given me some real highs and lows. I mean, there is nothing harder than seeing a child die and the pain and misery that causes the family. But there are also amazing highs, and children are incredibly resilient and they bounce back so quickly. I remember a friend of ours' child was born with a kidney problem and had to have a kidney transplant when he was about 2 years old. His father donated one of his kidneys, and the boy was up on the ward in the playroom the next day after his kidney transplant, and the father was intensive care for over a week. So children really do have the most amazing resilience. This little boy, Alfie, is a patient I will never, ever forget. So it was one of my first paediatric jobs. I was working at St George's Hospital. I was working for the paediatric surgical team at the time as a junior doctor on the ward. And he came into St George's A&E 18 days old, having been referred from his local hospital with a suspected surgical problem. He was vomiting and he was really, really sick. And I went with the parents to the scanner where he was diagnosed with a very severe twisted gut. He went straight to theatre that day and he lost most of his bowel, so he had hardly any bowel at all, which resulted in him having something called short gut syndrome, and he had to be fed into the veins for a very long time. So I was on the paediatric surgical ward for 4 months, and he was there for the duration of the time that I was on the ward, and he had numerous admissions back and forth into the paediatric intensive care and was a very, very sick little boy. And it was very sad. When I left that job, I went on maternity leave and had my son. And Alfie was still in St George's Hospital for a long time after I left. But Alfie now, as you can see in this photo, is a very grown-up, healthy, smiley 13-year-old boy. And I get a message every day, every year on his birthday and on Christmas from his parents with a photo of Alfie, which just cheers me up every single time and makes you realise how amazing this career is. There's also other things that people do within medicine, and paediatrics has famous hospitals and even famous people. So you might recognise Dr Ranj. Now, he works on This Morning now, and I job shared with him 10 years ago when he went part-time. I was part-time because of my children, and he went part-time to job share with me that year because he'd had an idea in the shower that he wanted to set up a TV programme called Get Well Soon, which was a TV show to educate young children about health and hospitals. And he has come a really long way, and it's a real proud story that he still works in the NHS at Evelina Children's Hospital, and yet he can do everything that he does on TV and in publishing and everything else that he does as well. So that's really lovely that he can do that. I've also not taken a very direct route to becoming a consultant, so you may wonder why I've only recently become a consultant, having gone to Leeds University in 1998. It can be a lot quicker path, and there are even people who have done medicine as a postgraduate degree who have become a consultant way quicker than me. But I've been part-time for a very long time. I had children in my second year as a paediatrician, and have been part-time, so taken double the course. But I've also taken time out to do a master's degree in advanced paediatrics, which just gave me a competitive edge with job applications, and a good insight into research. And I then decided to take a year out to do something called a Darcy Fellowship in Clinical Leadership. And this is a high-profile program designed to develop leaders from multi-professional backgrounds and the ability to undertake complex change initiatives. What that basically means is they want to get more doctors, nurses, physios into leading the NHS rather than just having managers coming in and leading it. They want to have people on the shop floor who know what they're doing, to be taught the management skills and the leadership skills to become the chief execs of hospitals, to lead change and to make a difference. And that was a really, really valuable year. And this is my cohort of Darcy Fellows at Imperial College, where we worked at St Mary's Hospital. And this was the biggest cohort they'd ever had in one hospital. And it was really fantastic experience, and we got a postgraduate certificate from it. And then I finally became a consultant paediatrician. So September 2019, I became a consultant, and I worked for a year at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital as a consultant. And it was probably one of my proudest days when I had my scrubs with my name and title on them. And then decided to leave my amazing training in London behind, and move closer to home, where I've got a permanent job now at St Peter's Hospital in Chertsey. And I now have my name on my door in my office, which is a very proud moment. So I hope that talking to you and people will inspire the future young people here today to go into medicine. So this is my two kids at Westfield a few years ago, in London at Kidzania, trying out what mummy does. And I just really hope that I can inspire you all to go into medicine. If you are interested in medicine, then I would recommend reading books such as This Is Going to Hurt, Do No Harm, Two for Joy, When Breath Becomes Air. There's so much literature out there now that gives you a real insight into patient experience as well as doctors' experiences. And obviously, like my passion for ER and Patch Adams, there are loads of TV programmes that I am still passionate about and watch, like Grey's Anatomy and New Amsterdam. So I think now is time to go back to Gordon and have any questions to the floor for Jamie and myself.
Brilliant, Tats. That was really, a round of applause. That was both really inspiring stories, actually, about following your dream and being very persistent. That's a long old route from Leeds University to where you are now, Tats. It's a lot of hard work there. We've got lots of questions, which is wonderful. And the first question I'm going to put is to Jamie. What sources of support are there for someone who wants to try starting a new business?
I mean, there's lots of different supports you can go for. There's you can go for government grants. There's a grant called Startup Loans, which offers, I think it's up to about £30,000 in loans into new businesses. There's the route of going down to angel investors, where you go and find individuals who have money and they want to invest in certain businesses. There is support always from friends and family. And I would always encourage anyone who is going to go and set up a business, is that I would always encourage you to talk to friends and family first, always the first way. But also, I think also there's a big saying that I got told once, that is, business is paid in two currencies, cash and experience. Take the experience first and the cash will come later. Don't do something because you want to make money, because I think it will probably most likely fail. Do something because you absolutely love it and you want to experience it. Because doing something for every day or building a business is very tricky, or doing medicine, as I said, it's very difficult. You have to really love what you do, because you do it every day. So make sure first and foremost it's what you love to do. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, totally. Thanks, Jamie. That's brilliant. Tats, one for you here. Simple one. How many years did specialising in paediatrics take?
How long it took me is not the answer to how long it does take.
Normally.
The current paediatric training is 8 years, but you can do it in less. So it's becoming more competency based rather than time based. And I definitely took a couple of years off my training from a competency based perspective. So it should have taken me longer than it did. But I think they're trying to shorten it down is the answer. It's probably going to be a 7-year training that might go down to 6 years if you've got the competencies ticked off.
Okay.
But then you have to have 2 years of general medical school beforehand. So it's usually 10 years to become a consultant if you go into paediatrics from medical school. That will probably go down to 8.
Okay. Here's another question for you, Tat. Sorry to fly them in at you. Do you think it's important for someone looking to do medicine to check that they're able to handle it mentally?
I think that's a really difficult thing to test, if I'm honest. And well-being is so important, and it's really, really important that doctors look out for each other's well-being and that it's recognised by the people you're working with. And I think we're becoming much, much better at doing that. And I don't think the way that I coped with Romania would say that I had the resilience or the mental strength to go into paediatrics, but it didn't stop me going into it. And I think it makes you a better doctor if you don't have huge mental strength and you do find things difficult. So you don't want to be completely cold-hearted and not be affected by your patients and your parents and the families around them. And I think it makes you much more self-aware and a better person if you do show some vulnerability. But I do think it's a very difficult thing to test to know whether you are going to have the mental strength. And so I think it's just being aware of it and knowing who to turn to and who to talk to if you do find it difficult along the way.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Just we're going to wrap up in a minute, but just one question I'm going to put to both of you. And I put this question to all of our speakers every night of the week. Probably quite boring, but actually, we're now talking to 17, 18-year-olds who then probably going to go to university or maybe go to university. So they're probably thinking starting work is 3 or 4 years away. How do you think your individual industries will change in the next 4 years? And I'm going to put that to Jamie first. How will your, let's say, the sweet business, confectionery business, how's that going to change in the next 4 years?
So I think with kind of so FMCG, which is this sort of sweet, so it's fast-moving consumer goods. I think the industry is very much going to go towards the health sector. So things which aren't healthy are probably going to be cut out slowly, but surely they'll be cut out. So in what ways can you make things as healthy as possible? And there's going to be tax on sugar and different things are going to come in. There's loads of things which are going to be, which is a good reason, right? But you've got to adapt in any industry. The thing I would say also about any industry, anything within the FMCG sector, or if you're selling to retailers or selling a product, I would look for a category that hasn't been developed in recent years. And to all of you guys, so it's something which, so for instance, for us, we were lucky, again, I go back to Naivety, we came across sweets. Sweets hadn't been developed for many years. So it's all the Roundtrees, the Haribos, the Maynards, the ones that you know, and we were the first ones to come in and shake up the market. So find a sector that you can shake up. And I would focus on cereal. So anyone who wants to go and create a new cereal, go and do it because it's an area that needs to be shaken up.
Excellent. And Tats, what about you? What about your industry?
How's medicine going to change? Well, there's lots of sort of predictions with AI and robots and how IT is going to change things. Hopefully it's all for the better. And just new discoveries and new cures and new things will come out that will completely change patient experience, hopefully. But I think at the end of the day, I don't think the actual job of being a patient and a diagnostic career will change. I think it will just change the way that we have our interface with patients. We're doing a lot more virtual consultations now. How IT will change things like that, I think, will make a difference. But the day-to-day interaction with patients, I don't think will change dramatically. Each time a new government comes in, the NHS structure changes. So who knows what's going to happen.
Excellent. All right, look, thank you. And both of you, thanks very, very much indeed for your time this evening. Before we wrap up and go, I just want to say to everybody who is watching that tomorrow is our last webinar, and we've heard some great speakers over the week and lots of great ideas and plans and dreams to follow and all that sort of stuff, but utterly hopeless unless you can, I guess, present yourself or find out what you really want to do in life and what you like, what you're good at. And tomorrow we've got Tim Chilvers, who's taking up the whole hour on his own from the Colin James method. And their speciality is really working on interview technique, presenting yourselves, finding what you love, finding what you're good at, and bringing the best out in yourself to put in front of people who you might want to employ you. So a really, really good session tomorrow. And so Jamie and Tats, thanks so much for your time. Brilliant. We can all go off now and have a nice evening. And thank you everyone for watching, and good night.